Parent of a student who faces just these type of exposure problems.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks everyone for being here today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to say a couple of things about the proposed revision to this law. I have been to the State House here a couple of times to listen to the advocates of the revision of this law talk about why they think it would be a good idea to allow schools be cited on these toxic properties. And I have been absolutely amazed at how they discussed how these toxic hazards would be managed if schools were allowed to be sited on these properties. They talk about sophisticated plans and technologies that exist which are proven to avoid harmful exposures. There's surefire plans for managing toxins. But my daughter goes to a school in Pawtucket that is right next to a contaminated site. And I have been following the management of that for the last 2.5 years, and it is absolutely nothing like, or my experience with the site has been absolutely nothing like what I have heard about how these toxins can be managed. So I first became aware of the toxic chemicals on the property one day when I went to drop my daughter off at school, or when I went to pick her up from school. She was a kindergartner at the time, and we actually would drive all the way from North Providence over to Pawtucket to drop her off in the morning, and then the same thing in the afternoon, which with traffic ends up to be about 2 hours a day, because we were anxious about making sure that she was well taken care of, and it didn't seem like we should just let her ride the bus. So I went to pick her up on a September day, opened my car door, and I just smelled very strong toxic smell in the air. Slammed my door shut because I had a 1.5-year-old son in the car, and I was afraid that whatever that was going to make him sick. He's younger, but of course I had to go in. I started investigating over the next couple of days what the smell was, and I finally was in touch with somebody at the Department of Environmental Management, and I let them know my concerns. And they told me actually that the site was being monitored, and that there was nothing to worry about because there were air monitors that were continually monitoring the toxins. And so there wasn't much I could do. They did tell me actually that they have a small staff, so they aren't able to actually go out to these sites. And so they said if I continued to see things of concern, then I should continue to call them. But at that point they had no reason really to believe there was a problem. So they did give me the number of the property manager. I called the property manager, and they actually told me, when I mentioned the smells, the woman asked me sarcastically whether I was calling to thank them for the cleanup work they were doing. But then she said actually what I was smelling was rainwater. They were cleaning up rainwater. And of course I had never smelled rainwater that smelled like that, but I was pretty stuck. There was nothing I could do. She said it was being monitored. Smells kept going. I had a friend actually who works with toxics and their effect on marine life, so she went over.
Of course they did not use that terminology there. What they said was, Mrs. Gibbs, we have found 8 chemicals in the air of your home, toxic chemicals, and we believe that that might potentially be leading to your child's asthma and other problems you have. It was vapor intrusion. So why would this group of people want to put Love Canal under the school of innocent children is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. She almost died at us at the age of 3. And it wasn't for any other reason than vapor intrusion. She did not crawl on the dump. Our drinking water was city water. It was vapor intrusion that almost killed my daughter. And had we not moved from that community, I would have lost both of my children. My son was also sick. I'm just here today to talk to legislators where I can, to try and encourage the public to speak out against this. Be proud of what you have. Be proud of the man who helped you make it happen and the communities that helped you make it happen, and fight like hell. Don't let them poison your children. Our children are our futures, if they cannot learn, if they're sick, and if we lose them, we as a country, as Americans, will have a sad future. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. Lois is going to be hanging out in front of the House chamber today to talk with legislators about the issue, and I'm sure he'll be happy to take questions as we go. Once again, thank you all for coming out today to hear about our opposition to these bills to undermine our school siding law that we currently have on the books, and we're happy to talk to you more in the future. Thank you very much.
The law that was passed here in Rhode Island last June is the strongest law in this country. Rhode Islanders should be proud of your legislators, you should be proud of your governor, and you should be proud of all these people who helped make that happen. I have taken it to New York, where they're looking to model your legislation, to Michigan, where they're looking to model your legislation, to Massachusetts, where they're looking to model your legislation. And while other states are looking at your legislation because it is so protective that it is perfect legislation, it's not a perfect environment, because as was said, we live in a chemical environment, they're trying to dismantle it here. I am here to say, if you care about children, if you care at all about teachers, who, by the way, don't teach because they get such big salaries, because they care about children, then you should stand up, make some phone calls, be in the face of the legislators and the people who are trying to undo the best piece of legislation this country has that came from your backyard here in Rhode Island. We heard the story of her daughter going to school. I will tell you, 35 years ago, June, almost 35 years ago today, was when I found out about Love Canal. And at Love Canal, I had a small child. And she didn't go to the school, she didn't go over the dump, she lived at the house because she was a baby. By the time Melissa was 3 years old, she almost died on us. She developed a rare blood disease. We had to rush her to the hospital. They thought she had leukemia.
It doesn't end here.
It's not going to end here, but it's going to stop along the way. There's lots to do. So I want to first congratulate the legislators who co-sponsored, and passed this bill. This is a fabulous bill. Not the one we're fighting, the one that's in place. And for the governor who signed the bill. And it was less than a year since the signing of the bill, and they're already coming and trying to tear it apart. It's like, what is wrong here? So I want to tell you a little story. Everybody's sort of heard about Love Canal. Love Canal was a toxic waste dump, and we lived around the community, around the site, and many of our children got very sick. We got sick not from the dump itself. We got sick